Hey guys, Crypto Sunday, last one of the year. Hope everyone had a nice Christmas and looking forward to a prosperous 2025. Somehow, with Bitcoin down, I've able to be up about 5,000, about 1% for the week, largely due to Solana, which I will come back to later. Looking at the CoinShares report, I sort of knew this was going to be a little bit rough. Been seeing a bit of inflows. This will probably be quite a bit negative for the next week's one. And yeah, saw 308 million in inflows. I sort of had been seeing, 3 billion, 4 billion almost previous week. This has largely still been going into BlackRock, as we noted, sort of outflows from pretty much everywhere else. And yeah, this has sort of come mostly into Bitcoin, 51 million into Ethereum, 120 million, 121 million out of multi-asset, which is a little bit strange. The sort of Europe, I gather, index products sort of seeing a bit of a hit. Whether these are, I can't imagine these are hedge funds because you wouldn't be hedging sort of exposure with an index ETF. You'd want sort of direct exposure. So yeah, maybe just sort of short-term buyers and sellers. 8.7 million out of Solana, not a huge surprise. It sort of seems a little bit weak at the moment. 8.8 million into XRP. It's still, very, very small AUM. So these sort of inflows, I guess, shouldn't be seen as too much. Did last week get like 120, so that was pretty big. Small inflows into Litecoin, short Bitcoin, Cardano, quite a little bit into Chainlink, 1.7 million, and a negative zero point 0.0 outflow out of other. So I guess that's a very, very small amount. And then, yeah, quite a bit of outflows sort of by country. It's fairly spread out. This was sort of quite the opposite last week. So Australia and Brazil with some small inflows, but then Canada, Germany, Sweden, Switzerland, all sort of reasonably big double-digit outflows. So yeah, we'll have to see. This can look horrendous with tomorrow's report, but yeah, hopefully 2025 brings more people. So the past week has not been good at all. We sort of ended the previous week with a couple of fairly sizable outflows, and this week has been mostly outflows. Sort of just before Christmas, you had a 226, a 338 million outflow, with one small inflow from BlackRock. Even Christmas Eve, even BlackRock was 188 million out. Then you had Christmas Day. Boxing Day was a short day, but was actually quite positive, 475 million. Just a small outflow from Bitwise and Grayscale. And then Friday, 287 million outflow, but with inflows to BlackRock and just the others selling. Again, even small inflow into the original GBTC, which is a little bit strange. You would think sort of hedge funds or something, not longer term people, but yeah, an awful lot of Fidelity, Bitwise, and ARK selling, and Invesco actually. When you look at sort of some of these, 25, 26, 25, they've only got 300. So yeah, they're taking a little bit of a hit, but BlackRock, for the most part, holding pretty strong. What is that? 250, 260 million of outflow on 37,000. 37 billion. Ethereum, strangely enough, was quite the opposite. Admittedly, it's they're newer and people are sort of pushing a little bit towards ETH in the last sort of few months. But yeah, it's quite surprised to see this. Pretty much no outflows at all in the last week, except one small one from the new Grayscale, 6.1 million out of there, but they had 6 million inflow to offset that on Boxing Day. But yeah, Fidelity and BlackRock positive every day, double digits for the most part, and sort of no real outflows from anyone else. Some of these are very, very small. The 21 shares one has got 10 million in. Franklin Templeton, fairly small. Invesco one's got 18 million. But yeah, you got Bitwise 400 million, and then BlackRock and Fidelity both in the billions, and no outflows at all. So people liking Ethereum. Whether people sort of are expecting staking to get introduced to these fairly soon. I know Hester Pierce has sort of hinted that that's something they'll be looking at fairly early on. Yeah, seems very keen to sort of get Gary Gensler out and get down to work with Paul Atkins, the new chap. So we'll see. Well, this was a really interesting article as well. The CF benchmarks are saying the Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs should move more towards investment advisors from hedge funds in 2025. So far they've been dominated by hedge fund managers who own 45% of the ETFs in total. And yeah, you can see this. You've got on the Bitcoin side, hedge fund managers 45.3% on Bitcoin. On Ethereum, they're only 23%. So investment advisors already dominate the Ethereum ETFs with 33%, largest holder. They're 28% on the Bitcoin ones. And then brokerage. So I gather brokerage would be individual investors buying the ETFs on their own brokerage platform. So individual investors 21% on Bitcoin and 17.8% on Ethereum. You've got sort of private equity and trusts at smaller percentages, and then other 22% on Ethereum, whereas only 2.7% on Bitcoin. But yeah, interesting sort of breakdown. I haven't really seen this from anyone else. It all seemed to be sort of speculation, but I guess now you've got an awful lot more 13Fs from big investors and other people who may sort of be able to dig in a little bit deeper. I thought this was interesting, and CF benchmarks, who a lot of people sort of use for their indexes and data, are basically saying the 88 trillion US wealth management industry should begin to embrace these vehicles, eclipsing the 40 billion in net flows sort of over the next year. So this 28% they're saying should rise above hedge funds. Whether that could just mean hedge funds selling, but I think they are thinking an awful lot of inflows from investment advisors. So this is the richer people, not just brokerage accounts, richer people who have somebody managing their money, either deciding to put a little bit into the Bitcoin ETFs, or the individual themselves saying that they want some exposure. And you've got BlackRock sort of putting out their papers saying it's worth holding a couple of percent, and a lot of people listen to those types of investors and companies. So yeah, it would be interesting to see sort of if investment advisors can push on. You would think they would be longer term holders than the hedge funds. A lot of the hedge funds are just doing it for the basis trade. So you sell futures and you get a little bit of income for that, and just buy the ETF, and then you're basically price neutral. Whether price goes up or down, you make the same amount, and you're just making your arbitrage difference between the two. So yeah, that's not really adoption of Bitcoin, and sort of won't really affect the price, since they're shorting the futures as well, which a lot of people have called the ETFs wildly successful. But if it's price neutral people, then that's not really having a big impact. But yeah, really interesting article, I thought, from CF benchmarks, really. You can see more institutions as well diving into sort of what some are calling a Ponzi scheme, the MicroStrategy issuance of convertible debt, with obviously other companies piling in on this sort of debt now. And yeah, you've had a Bitwise ETF for corporations that hold at least 1,000 Bitcoin. So fairly interesting. All these sort of public companies that you're allowed to buy that hold Bitcoin. So it'll be MicroStrategy, the miners, and then sort of a handful of others. I would have thought. I think Tesla still hold over 1,000, and yeah, the some of these new ones that are issuing debt. I don't think they all hold 1,000. Some of the sort of smaller companies, yeah, Cooler, KULR is the ticker. Cooler Technology. They're one of the latest ones, maker of energy storage products. It does look like they're not issuing debt to buy Bitcoin. They are just buying it with surplus cash, presumably a profitable firm, and they're saying they're allocating up to 90% of surplus cash to Bitcoin. But they bought 217 for 21 million, so they wouldn't be included in that ETF if that's all they've got so far. Yeah, you got sort of a few different companies in there at least, and this sort of, some people are saying, incentivizes companies to acquire 1,000 Bitcoin because you'll get, flows into that ETF. I wouldn't have thought that ETF is going to grow enormously, so you're not exactly going to get a huge amount of inflows compared to what it would cost to buy 1,000 Bitcoin. Obviously, you've got to be fairly positive on Bitcoin in general to want to do that. But you've also had Strive Asset Management issue or file at least, for a Bitcoin bond ETF. So an ETF of the bonds, the convertible bonds that people are issuing to buy Bitcoin. Now that it's not just MicroStrategy doing it, you've had a few of the miners, Marathon, CleanSpark, and Riot Platforms all issue convertible debt. I'm not too aware of that many more. I don't think it'd be sort of particularly good to have an ETF with, 4 companies' bonds in. But people clearly still love these bonds. You've got MicroStrategy's 0% coupon bond expiring in 2027. It's currently priced at 150% above par. So if Bitcoin just stays where it is, and that sort of convertible, it doesn't reach the price it needs to convert, then you sort of lose that 50% premium, and yeah, you'd possibly not even get all of your money back, because it would mean they probably have to start selling Bitcoin, and then everything could start to go haywire. But yeah, they're basically thinking that price will go up significantly over the next sort of 3 years before 2027, or 2 years really. And yeah, they would convert their bonds into shares, and the share price would go up even from then to want to pay 150% above the coupon, above the bond value. Since you're not getting any interest at all, then that is the only reason you would want to hold them. So there's clearly sort of bull cases in the bond world, and now you've got an ETF potentially to be piling into these bonds. So speaking of MicroStrategy, they did probably end the year, I would have thought. We may get an announcement tomorrow that they bought some more, but I believe they have a blackout period of sort of 1 month before earnings, and they're not allowed to buy any more, but we could possibly get one more buy. This week's buy was 5,262, smallest for quite a while, 561 million. So yeah, they paid an average of 106,662, pretty much the top of the market. And he sort of tweeted the next day in defense of this, I suppose. He tweeted, I believe he said, if you're not buying the top of the market, then you're leaving money on the table. I think people would literally say that he is leaving money on the table, since it's dropped fairly quickly to sort of 92,000, 93,000. And yeah, they could have sort of got a fair bit more, but I guess you never know, it could have shot up. But their average price is now 62,257, so it is getting people more and more worried that in the sort of bear market, potentially 2026, if we drop to 62,000 or even close to it. They could be forced to sell some Bitcoin, and then that would cause a sort of stampede out of the stock and potentially a sort of self-reinforcing spiral downwards. So yeah, the higher they push this price, the more risky it gets, basically. That's why I suppose it's not the worst idea for other companies to be issuing this debt rather than MicroStrategy, and maybe sort of spread some of the risk around. Although I suppose the other companies that are sort of issuing debt now and buying it now will have an average of sort of 90, 95,000, 100,000 rather than sort of 62. So yeah, maybe it is safer for MicroStrategy themselves to do it, since they have sort of such a low average. The idea that sort of it doesn't drop below 100 in the bear market is maybe a little bit a little bit of a tall order. So really, you want to be out sort of by the end of the bull market. This was interesting on the mining side as well. Russia issuing a 6-year ban on crypto mining in 10 different regions due to sort of lack of energy. They're using too much energy. I always thought Russia had, energy to spare pretty much everywhere, but this is, I guess, only in 10 regions. Yeah, takes effect January the 1st and ends March the 15th, 2031. I would think that could possibly change before then. It seems an awful long time to, be planning ahead. Could have anything happen by then. But yeah, it's sort of interesting that they legalized it in July. And yeah, people have had sort of 6 months, less than 6 months really, to whir up these miners, and now suddenly they've been banned. So don't know if this is now basically e-waste or whether these people are going to try and sell everything, because you would think in 6 years they're going to be worthless. So yeah, they're not going to be efficient enough to mine in 6 years. So you want somebody using those rigs now. So whether these people are going to sort of move them to other regions or try and sell them to other countries, it's a little bit unknown, but a bit of a strange move. I gather they're still mining in other regions, of course, but yeah, very strange sort of move from Russia. This hasn't had a huge amount on the overall hash rate. You've still got sort of other people expanding, other countries starting to mine, and I don't think Russia were a huge amount of hash rate overall to begin with. So yeah, just looking on the 1 day here over the last 3 months, it's still sort of trickling up. We look at the 7-day average, it's still a little bit up and down, but I guess topped 7-day average at least topped on the 15th, so 2 weeks ago today, and it's been sort of slightly up and down, but overall down to 779 from 801 on the 7-day average at least. 30-day obviously is still just continuously up, because overall people are still adding, and 30 days ago we were at less. But yeah, if you look at sort of more recent time, I wouldn't say topping, because you just had continuously higher and higher tops. There's always someone spinning up a new site and saying we're going to be increasing hash rate by 30%, 50% over the next sort of 6 months or whatever. So yeah, just thought that was interesting to highlight. And then lastly, just a quick look at the Ethereum burning. Not taking a look at this for quite a while because not much was happening, but yeah, I thought this was sort of interesting just to take a look at. You sort of had a little bit of activity on chain. This is sort of a good metric, I would say, for activity on the main chain, rather than just continuous sort of layer 2 usage, which doesn't actually provide much Ethereum burning. So you had sort of throughout early to mid-December a fair bit of usage, not enough to make it net deflationary. It's still sort of inflating at a fairly slow rate, but then from the 21st, 22nd, it sort of ripped back into continual inflation. And if you look at since the merge, it was sort of this low point in April, and it is now 60, less than 60,000 off the supply at the time of the merge. So it dropped 460,000 up to April this year, and has now risen 400,000 since that point, and is sort of almost back to that level. I suppose people will say if it goes back to the level it was at the merge, and even a fair bit above that, it's still less inflationary than even Bitcoin. So that isn't the worst thing. If they could sort of maybe stabilize it around that level, then just a constant supply of 120 million, 120.5 million, say, it isn't going up or down particularly, would be sort of a strong tokenomics, if you like. And as I say, even stronger than Bitcoin. Obviously, Bitcoin's still going up 1.5% a year. So yeah, I'm sure people will be shouting that this is, if it gets to that level, then it's flat over 2 years at least. So yeah, just thought it was interesting to point out. And portfolio-wise, as I say, Bitcoin had sort of a little bit of a rough week, 1.5%, nothing too much, but it's been a bit of a roller coaster all over the place. Solana is up 6%, so that has caused most of the up move, albeit most of the other altcoins are in the green at least. Ethereum up 1%, so fairly slow. Chainlink down 3.1%. And then, Gala up 2.5%, Quant up 8.5%, Power Ledger up 14%. That's done pretty well. Audius 7.6%, ICP 3.4%, VeChain 1.6%, Basic Attention Token 17%. Not really seen any sort of super news to cause that, but that's outperformer for the week. And Matic 7% up. So yeah, the altcoins have been doing reasonably well for the last week after sort of having a fairly rough December. But we'll see where we go in 2025. So hope you guys have a nice new year, and we'll see you next year.